Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for July 5th, 2023. In 1996, Samuel Huntington published a book titled The Clash of Civilizations and the Remaking of World Order. Huntington was a product of the Harvard British Influence School run by William Yandell Elliot, a top British operative, who had among his leading students Huntington and Henry Kissinger. And Huntington collaborated closely as well with Zbigniew Brzezinski. It's not a coincidence that on the back of his book, the blurbs talking about how brilliant he is were written by Brzezinski and Kissinger. Now, if you look at the world today, we see that this idea of clash of civilizations, perhaps not as Huntington described it, but in that tradition of British geopolitics, dividing the world so that an imperial power can serve as a unipolar hegemon, that is under incredible challenge right now from the emergence of a new multilateral system based on breaking the power of the one ruler, one superpower system. Now, when you look at this, the developments in the world today, you can see very clearly that these are the two tendencies. One, to continue the Brzezinski, Kissinger, Huntington, classical British geopolitical system, or the emergence of a new system based on mutual benefit of sovereign nation states. Now, let's look on the one side what happened on July 4th. Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, again spoke of the threat to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. And he said, quote, "The only source of danger for the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is Russia itself and no one else," unquote. And he called on NATO to intervene. Now, this is an example of a potential false flag. And I'll get back to that in a moment. But then let's look at what happened also on July 4th with the rest of the world, the global majority. There was a Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit, a video connection with nations representing 40% of the world's population. And the communique from it called for an end to the system of wars and looting, building instead, quote, "a community of the common destiny of humanity," unquote, which is a consistent theme coming from Xi Jinping of China, who was one of the speakers at the conference. Now, while this Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting to shape the future was going on, Zelensky continued to push the line that Russia is planning a nuclear strike, and that he said that they're going ahead, they're preparing to go ahead because, quote, "there was no timely and large-scale response to the terrorist attack against the Kakhovka hydroelectric plant," unquote. In other words, because our last false flag, that is the Ukrainian attack on the dam, didn't cause a reaction to blame Russia, it didn't work. So now we need a greater provocation. That's essentially what Zelensky's saying. Now, he's saying it in spite of the fact that the International Atomic Energy Agency head Grossi said they've inspected the plant and found no explosives on site. Now, further evidence pointing to the provocation from Ukraine was the fact that at 1:21 in the morning on July 4th, the last of the 4 power lines to the nuclear power plant were cut. This power comes from Kiev-controlled areas. Now, fortunately, the backup power system worked. The plant was back online, able to pump cooling water. But this just highlights the fact that it's from Ukraine that these threats occur. Now, Zelensky's warning came as he also acknowledged that Ukraine's offensive has not met expectations. And this is 1 week before the Vilnius NATO summit, where Zelensky is expected to press his case for immediately either bringing Ukraine in as a member of NATO or granting them full security guarantees under Article 5. Now, these events going on in Ukraine coincide with another aspect of the collapse of the unipolar order. This case, economically, there are new warnings that the economy is facing, quote, a harder landing, unquote, than expected because of the continuing rise in interest rates. This warning came from the present chief investment officer of PIMCO, which is the world's largest bond trading firm. Now, as he said this, there was what he said to the Financial Times is that there's too much confidence in the quality of central bank decisions and their ability to engineer positive outcomes. Too much confidence in the central banks. Well, who's making all the decisions? The central banks. So he pinpointed the problem, but not the solution. The Financial Times also ran an op-ed by Mohammed El-Arian, the former CEO of PIMCO, who wrote that nations are, quote, testing the boundaries of what might be called the region of stability, unquote. The boundaries of the region of stability. In other words, we're headed into extremely unstable situation. Now, just one example of this is in Germany, Markus Kreber, the head of the leading German energy firm RWE, said, quote, we don't have as much energy as we need, unquote, and added, quote, we are seeing the first signs of deindustrialization, unquote. This is what we've been warning about. This is what Helga Zepp-LaRouche tried to get across to the German political parties, that the green policy was destroying German industrialization. And the German industry, especially the machine tool sector, the engineering sector, the auto sector, have been the driver of European prosperity. You shut that down, which is the inevitable result of getting rid of nuclear power, coal, and fossil fuel energy, and replacing it with inefficient solar and wind power, and you destroy the engine of the European prosperity. And we're seeing that now. And the riots in France, which appear to be subsiding somewhat, nevertheless are an effect of the same process. The economy is not able to support the population, and those who have been pushed to the bottom are beginning to lose their patience. Now, meanwhile, at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization conference, you had an address from Xi, from Putin, and from Modi. And what they're doing is coordinating economic policy, security policy, and so on. On economic policy, you can see an upgrading going on of Russian and Indian ties. It was reported that Russian oil to India has grown from 2% of Indian imports of oil to 46%. And that now some of the payments from India to Russia are being made in yuan, not dollars, not rupees even, but yuan. So you have an Indian, Russian, China agreement on financial transactions across borders. Now, keep in mind that Modi was just recently wined and dined by Biden and Blinken, who are trying to pull India away from Russia. Now, Modi actually addressed this in an oblique way in his comments. He said that there are thousands of years of cultural and people-to-people ties between the nations of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is essentially broader Eurasia, with the major powers being Russia, China, and India. And by the way, Iran was brought into the SCO at this recent session. But here's what Modi said. We do not see this area as an extended neighborhood, but as an extended family. So this shows again that the US, British, NATO efforts to isolate Russia have failed, and in fact has led to a new initiative with new force to pull together an alternative to the unipolar order. So the question then is replacing geopolitics and the clash of civilization idea with a community of the shared destiny of humanity. Now, our job is to recruit Western nations to give up their greed-driven unipolar order and to join this community. So thank you for joining me today. I'll see you again tomorrow. Hello, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our videos. Support our independence to produce videos like these. Become a member of the LaRouche organization at thelarouche.org/member. By becoming a member for $25 or more, you'll get special access to the EIR Alert Daily Briefing and Weekly Magazine, which is what I read to stay on top of things.